Hey, I'm Sean Kanan. You know me as Karate's bad boy. You're watching Taboo's Comics and Kicks. And if you're not, well, guess what? Your Karate's a joke.
Hola, amigos. What's up, everybody? Whoa. Hold on. So as a person that started this podcast, I started this because it brought healing and therapy, and it brought good medicine to moments when I felt trauma and experienced real life issues. And this podcast has allowed me to meet some of my heroes and to also just be able to fan out on movie franchises that set the tone for my childhood. This podcast is dedicated to two movies that were inspirational and integral to my upbringing. The first movie was Back to the Future. I've said it several times. The second movie is Karate Kid. So my guest today is royalty in my eyes. He is synonymous for my childhood, for inspiring me because he was chosen out of a line. Kid took a chance to come from Pennsylvania to Los Angeles. Directors walking down the line, seeing all these kids possibly auditioning for Karate Kid, and they chose this kid. This man is an accomplished author. He's got his own hot sauce. I know him as the bad boy, because he set the tone for Karate Kid 3. You know, you got Johnny, Karate Kid 1, you got Chosen in Karate Kid 2. But this man portrayed Mike Barnes. The man I'm talking about is my good friend, the one and only. Give it up for Sean Kanan.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's an honor to be here with you, brother. Thank you.
I didn't want to go into the things that you've done in your acting because I wanted to talk to you about it. I wanted to talk about, the soap operas that you've done, and of course, Karate Kid Part 3. But I want to start with, I even wrote my notes here. I want to start with you, a kid from Pennsylvania, taking a chance coming to Los Angeles. What was that like for you? Because I saw that on Entertainment Tonight, seeing you in line. What was that like?
So we had a family business. It was jewelry stores, and I was supposed to take it over. And when I told my parents that I was going to come out to Hollywood to pursue my acting career, I mean, it's like saying that you're going to run away and join the circus. But my parents were really supportive of it. And I transferred from Boston University to finish my political science degree at UCLA. That was the deal. I had to finish college, but I mean, I was really coming at her to start my career. And I knocked on a lot of doors, made a lot of mistakes, but I was tenacious. I just would not quit. And I felt this sense of destiny drawing me to this career. And when I finally got the opportunity for the open call for Karate Kid 3, it was the third installment of a successful franchise. You don't expect that you're going to find one of the lead actors in an open call. If I had to really reflect on it, I think it was probably a publicity stunt, to give a little... a
little boost to the third movie.
A little boost to it. I was standing in line with thousands of other people, and John Avildsen, who had directed the Karate Kid 2, won the Oscar in 1976 for Rocky, stopped in front of me, and I knew I had a few seconds to get his attention, and I ultimately wound up getting the role, and it not only changed the trajectory of my career, but my life.
Well, I loved what I saw was the innocence of you being a kid in line, ready to I know you said, oh, I'm a SAG, blah, blah, blah. You gave all your credentials. But then to be able to be interviewed by Entertainment Tonight and not knowing what was going to happen.
Crazy.
The trajectory of success, you being an Emmy award-winning creator and producer, Studio City.
Studio City, yeah.
I mean, bro, like you got your own hot sauce, you have books, you're a life coach. Yeah. There's all these great
But back then, like you said, I was just this kid.
You were
this
a kid
from Pennsylvania. And, I'll never forget, I came back from school in Boston, and I was back in my little town in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. And we used to hang out at this gas station, me and my buddies. And I said, there's this open call for Karate Kid 3.
How'd you hear about the open call?
So I heard about
social media.
I heard about the open call because my martial arts teacher, Sensei Fumio Demura, was also Pat Morita's stunt double.
Ooh.
And so he said to me, he goes, Sean, they make a new bad guy. You go audition. And I was like, all right, thank you, Sensei.
So
and
he would even talk like Pat Morita?
He really, well, there's a documentary called The Real Miyagi, and it's about him.
That's dope, dude.
And he is, he passed away, but he was actually what was called a Shihan. And a Shihan means master, but it can only be bestowed on you by the Emperor of Japan. It's almost like being knighted. And he was truly a martial arts legend. And when I eventually was about to get the role, he was really instrumental because he kind of gave me the stamp of approval and said, hey, he's a good kid. I know who he is. He's got really good foundational martial arts skills. He can do it. And that, I think, really kind of put it over the top for me. But what I was saying was I was hanging out with my buddies and I said, yeah, there's this open call. And I said, I'm going to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddies didn't laugh at me.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, go do it, man. Get it. And I mean, I've learned subsequently after all these years that there were 10,000 people that tried out for that role.
Yeah.
And, actually they hired somebody else before they hired me. They had somebody for about 2 weeks and then they let him go and they remembered me and called me back. And that's when
Why'd they let him go?
Truthfully, I think that he wasn't really an actor. I think he had kind of a look that they wanted, but he wasn't able to evoke the aggressiveness and instill a sense of terror in Ralph's character.
Wasn't a good villain.
Yeah, I mean, and I like to think I'm a nice guy, but I have that little part inside of me where I can turn it up when I have to, and I was just able to sort of channel that. And then I was also really bullied as a kid. And so I think that character was kind of an amalgamation of a lot of the experiences and the bullies I encountered. I kind of poured it into that.
That's awesome, dude. And you had, did you have training before you came to?
Yeah. So I had trained with Fumio Demura and I had trained with one of Demura senseis who was from my hometown for years. So I had really, really good basic martial arts training. And when I say basic, I don't mean like, basic in the sense that I could only do a couple things. All of my basic to intermediary skills were super solid. So they could build on it. They also realized what I couldn't do, but I had enough that they could make me look like a guy that was a competitive fighter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm always really grateful that I had studied martial arts because I don't think they could have taken somebody who'd never studied martial arts and in that amount of time made them look like they were a national champion.
Well, your acting chops were amazing, dude. Like you really portrayed Mike Barnes to the T. And Terry Silver being kind of like the antagonizing guy that was leading you on like, yo, you're going to do this. You're going to beat LaRusso because he had this vengeance representing Kreese, right? John, what was his name?
Martin Cove? John Kreese. Yeah,
John Kreese.
Yep.
I like that whole freaking back and forth with you and Terry Silver. What's the actor's name?
Thomas Ian Griffith.
He was dope.
He was terrific.
He was great.
Do you know that he was actually younger than Ralph Macchio? Younger than Ralph Macchio.
He was?
Yeah.
Ralph's like 80.
No, man, he looks great though.
No, but I'm saying he looks 30. Every time you hear his age, you're like,
Ralph is
in his 60s, I heard.
62 maybe?
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
62, 60.
Shout out to Ralph Macchio, dude.
Listen,
unsung hero.
Every single time I see Ralph at these Comic-Con events and things like that, I am humbled and so appreciative of the opportunity that he gave me and how it changed my life.
Yeah.
And he's such a good, decent family guy, no ego.
That's awesome.
It's really nice to see somebody who's achieved that. Same with Billy Zabka. Same with Yuji Okamoto, who plays Chosen. Just really good. All the bad guys are really nice guys.
Tell me about a moment that really sticks out with you to being on set. If it's the tournament or the scene where you're in the bonsai facility.
I would have to say it's the tournament, and I'll tell you why. I've told this story many times, but I almost died filming the movie. So we'd been filming for about 2 weeks.
You almost died filming the movie?
Yeah.
Why?
I'll tell you. So we'd been filming about 2 weeks and we broke for Christmas. And I was having some pretty significant pain in my upper left thigh, which I was, I figured it was from all the martial arts I was doing. So I was taking a lot of aspirin. So Christmas Day, 1988, while most people were, getting ready to spend the holidays with their family. I was bleeding to death in an emergency room at Humana Sunrise Hospital in Las Vegas. The pain in my leg was from internal bleeding. The blood was dripping down in my femoral artery, causing the pain, and the aspirin exacerbated the bleeding.
Because it thins your blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So I passed out. They took me to the hospital, and they said, we have to operate on you. And I said, okay, you mean Monday? And they said, no, we mean in 10 minutes. And they gave me a piece of paper saying that I acknowledged that they didn't know if they could save my life. And shit got very real very quickly.
Of course.
And I remember as they were about to put me under, I looked at the doctor and I said, hey, if there's any way that you can not cut through my abdominal muscles and resect them here, I'm giving medical advice to the surgeon.
How old are you at this time?
I was 22 because I knew if they cut my abdominal muscles, there's no way that I could have rehabilitated myself in time to rejoin the movie. And then I said, tell me one more thing. I said, tell me you're good. And he goes, don't worry. I grabbed them. I go, tell me you're good. He goes, I'm good. They put me to sleep. I woke up, had a 15-inch wound on my abdomen, surgical staples. They couldn't get me a private room. And there was a guy in the bed next to me. He died the next day. And I was like, that's not a good omen.
Oh, fuck.
And then I saw my father sitting there and he was just gray. My parents got the call like midnight in Pennsylvania. They could only get one ticket because it was late. My dad flew out. My mom came out later. And I just thought to myself, what must my poor dad have thought? My son's going into surgery. I don't really know what's wrong. I don't know if he's going to make it. And so I got a call because the first thing I was thinking about was, what's going to happen with the movie? And I didn't have to wait long. John Avildsen called me and he basically said, you got 2 weeks to come back to set or we're going to hire Brandon Lee. And I got pissed off. I was like, this is, there were no balloons, there were no flowers. It was get back to work. And so first day I got out of bed and I barely made it over to the bathroom. And then I got back in bed and collapsed. And the next day I walked around the whole hospital floor. And the day after that, I walked around 2 or 3 times. And then I had them discharge me against medical advice. I decided I was going to somehow figure out how to rehabilitate myself and rejoin the film. And I wound up doing all my own stunts in the film. And I always joke that it's a good thing that I had the black martial arts gi because if it was white, you would have seen that, bleeding through. And I wouldn't wish that experience on anybody, but it to date remains the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me, but also the most catalytic and seminal experience I've had because at 22 years old, it revealed a part of my character that I didn't know I had. Basically when push came to shove, and my back was against the wall, I chose to fight. And I'm not saying that that's how it's been every time in my life, but over the years when I've dealt with stuff that's been difficult, I'm like, well, is it as difficult as being told that you might not live? Then, buck up, buttercup. Yeah. And it's an experience that I wouldn't trade.
You know what? Just speaking about that, I talked about this last week, or last time we did an episode. I talked about my experience as a cancer survivor. Oh, wow. And right now, when you said that, like when you're like, oh, how much time do I have? Monday or next week? And the guy's like, no, 10 minutes. Same thing when I found out I had cancer. They were like, you need to go into surgery. I'm like, can I get a second opinion? They're like, no, you're running out of time. And then they said, Then they said, you're going to need to go into chemotherapy. I said, can I get a second opinion? They're like, no, you got to start on Monday.
Did you get a second opinion?
No, dude. I went straight into chemotherapy. Had my right testicle removed.
Oh, man.
Because the cancer came from the right testicle, spread to my 2 lymph nodes in my spine, and it was spreading at a rapid rate.
God, you're okay.
Yeah,
God
dude.
bless.
So that same, emphasis about like, yo, is it worse
when you're putting your hands in a stranger and it's terrifying because you have no choice.
Yeah. So that resilience and that moment of clarity of understanding like nothing can ever, outdo the feeling of like, now I'm face mortality, right? Career, anything that is an obstacle. Yeah. Nothing prepares you for that moment. So I'm glad that you talked about that because my show is dedicated to storytelling, but also being candid with the people and letting people know that although we are blessed to be able to be actors, actresses, performers, musicians, artists, at the end of the day, we do have these moments of vulnerability and moments where we have to have resilience and that fight, that inner strength.
You know what it is, bro? I mean, look, this is life. Nobody
Yes.
gets out of life
Correct.
without having challenges
Mhm.
and being tested. And, you know, it's Sensei Demara used to always say, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8.
I love that.
And that's always stuck with me, you know? And it's true. It's especially in our business,
Yeah.
you know, this is a tough business.
It is, for sure.
Entertainment.
It is.
And I always say that I feel badly for the kid that comes out to Hollywood and smacks it out of the park on day one, you know, and thinks that, you know, that's how the business works, where you just maybe, you know, have immediate success. Because I think the failures, which ultimately aren't failures at all, they're teachers.
Mhm.
Well, the lessons are.
They toughen
exactly.
you. You know, they toughen you. They give you a different perspective. They teach you to appreciate it. And you learn that, first of all, this is a marathon, not a 50-yard dash.
Of course.
That's the first thing. And the second thing, one thing I took away from it is, you know, you don't focus on the results. If you want results, ignore them. Focus on refining the process necessary to achieve the results.
1,000%. We talk about this every day.
The life
Yeah.
coach. I like the
Yeah.
life coach coming out
We
right
talk
now.
about this every day.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're focused on just the result, you'll never achieve it.
Mhm.
Well, you're also focused in the future, not
Yeah.
the present.
Right.
You know what I mean?
One of the things that I wanted to touch on, going back to Karate Kid before we move on,
Sure.
Pat Morita. Pat
Yeah.
Morita, I'm a big Ninja Turtles fan, and I love Master Splinter. He was amazing. Kind of the same the holistic way of approaching martial arts, but also just like things that Daniel LaRusso, mistakes that he made. Mr. Miyagi would always see how he can help him, but also let him go through his
Sure.
mistakes and learn from that. What was it like working with Pat Morita? Such an iconic. I mean, he was Arnold from Happy Days.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
See, I knew him as Arnold. I mean,
same.
I used to book home during lunch in God, it wasn't even elementary school. Yeah, I guess it was like first, second grade, and I would watch Happy Days.
Yep.
And then years later, I was a guy that bought a ticket to go see the Karate Kid.
Yeah.
I was a guy that bought a ticket to see
Same.
the Karate Kid 2, and then suddenly I'm the guy on the back lot of the studio filming it. So it was.
Can we get a round of applause for that?
Thank you.
Seriously.
That's cool. So, when I worked with Pat, he was an extraordinary man. If you know anything about his story, he was
Comedian, right?
he was a
Stand-up.
comedian, but he was in an internment camp. And I mean,
Mhm.
he had some significant health problems, and it was such an honor to meet him and have the opportunity to work with him, because there was a Karate Kid 4 that, he was in, but
Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank, yeah. But he didn't, he didn't do that much more after that. And it just was something really special to be able to say that, that I worked with the great Pat Morita. He absolutely deserved to have been awarded the Academy Award.
Definitely.
I think it was a real oversight that he wasn't.
Mhm.
I don't know if a lot of that was because people thought really that's who he was, that he was this little Japanese man with an accent,
Mhm.
but he talked more like a, Jewish comedian from the
Correct.
Borscht Belt,
Yeah.
which is just a testament to his range as an actor.
Well, that's what I appreciated about, because I saw an interview and the documentary about how he tapped into growing up with, elders that talk like that. And he just really embodied what it was like to be a teacher.
Yeah.
He was a life coach to Daniel LaRusso too.
For sure.
Father figure.
For sure.
I felt like that moment of him connecting with Mr. Miyagi, Daniel connecting with Mr. Miyagi, he needed that in his life.
There's so much good. I think one of the reasons that the Karate Kid universe has existed for so long is that the knowledge that Mr. Miyagi imparts is so universal.
Mhm.
A lot of it I think comes from Buddhism.
Yep.
The whole concept of never put passion before principle. Okay to lose to opponent, must not lose to fear.
Mhm.
Those are things that really stuck with me, even though I was playing the bad guy. The martial arts that I trained in was actually really similar to what Mr. Miyagi taught Daniel. I studied Okinawan martial arts, which was very akin to what Mr. Miyagi taught. And I think that message that he gave to Daniel resonated with all the subsequent generations, which is, why the film still has relevance all these years later.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk about, when you talk about martial arts, so there was 3 moments in all 3 films that really resonate and really became part of pop culture. The first being the crane kick, right?
Sure, yeah.
Second being the drum, right?
The drum,
whatever that style was. And then the third was the kata that he did when he was fighting you. Talk about those 3 moves that really infiltrated pop culture.
So the crane kick was invented by a teacher of mine named Daryl Vidal. And Daryl actually played a role in The Karate Kid. He fought Johnny Lawrence at the end. He did all those like really great aerial kicks.
Yes.
So Daryl's a 10th degree black belt in Kempo karate. He's absolutely amazing. Yeah. And they wanted to have some very special signature move. And Daryl came up with the crane kick. And so when you look at Mr. Miyagi out in front of the ocean on that
wooden beam?
pier beam or whatever, that's Daryl doing it.
That's awesome.
And so that's just so unbelievably iconic.
Dude, it became a spoof. It became a meme. It became so intrinsic to when you think about martial arts, even people that weren't knowing martial arts, they always resorted to that.
Have you ever tried it on your friends, Tab?
Never tried it, bro. I'd probably get my ass
I've always
kicked
kind of
in.
wanted to try the crane kick.
You
on
did?
A friend. Maybe one of my siblings. I probably did.
That's funny.
I probably hit him with one.
I mean, it was so classic. Pat Johnson.
Yes, Master Johnson.
I have to give props to Master Pat Johnson for being the referee. Right? He was the ref.
Pat trained me for Karate Kid 3.
Yeah.
I mean, Pat was a legend. I mean, he was captain of Chuck Norris's demo team in the late 60s. There was no effing around with Mr. Johnson.
Yes, sir.
I mean, he was, and I needed that too, because, I was serious about my acting, but I was super green. If you look at any business, any career, it's got its own vocabulary. Like basketball, if you're in an operating room, it has its own vocabulary. Acting's the same way, working on a set. And when I showed up, what I knew could fill a thimble. I mean, there were all sorts of things being referenced to. I just didn't understand it. I had to learn it. Camera shots, lighting, things like that. And I also think that the producers didn't know if I was going to be able to pull off the role. They weren't convinced until the final tournament. And then they were like, you did it, you pulled it off. And so they rode herd on me. They were pretty tough on me, but I needed it. And Pat did too. But within him being very disciplined and strict with me, I could see that it was coming from a place of care, because I'm the kind of guy, like, if you do this to me, it doesn't go well. But if you support me and give me positive reinforcement, I'll break my back for you. Yeah. You know what I mean? And Pat did that. And so I, on some level, wanted to do well for him and do well for Sensei Demura and everything. But I needed that. And also, I was hanging out with John Avildsen's son, Jonathan, who was a terror. Yeah. I mean, Jonathan was not so much on set, but like, I was hanging out with him and he'd go, hey, let's go tag a bunch of subways. I didn't even know what tagging meant, and he was like this tagger from New York, and he was a little bit of a wild child, and they knew that I was hanging out with them. And so they were very careful to try and keep an eye on me, because, if my character didn't work in the film didn't work. Right. So
what's cool about this film, this franchise, is that there's great quotes. First one being "No mercy," right? You think about Karate Kid, "No mercy." Right. Mike Barnes had a great line, and I know you gave me one of the shirts, so I want to talk about this line right here. Your karate's a joke, LaRusso. Like, that was so iconic, because it's during this battle right here, this famous scene.
Yeah, you can hold my photo real quick. Go ahead.
Brian's trying to take my photo.
I'm gonna have to get you one of these.
And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, it's autographed by Sean and also the great Ralph Macchio.
I mean, who wouldn't want that? Come on,
right? Come on, dude. Let's talk about that quote, because the quote is so powerful, and it's intrinsic to that movie. And you're now doing all the Comic-Cons. I see people come up to you and they love this line.
I guess even as a young kid, I was aware of branding. John Avildsen gave me that line, and I was like, "Your karate's a joke." I go, "All right, I'll try it."
Yeah.
You know. And then when I did Cobra Kai, I worked very diligently to do my best to try and get the big three to put that into Cobra Kai because, you know, I knew that would really solidify branding it. Right. When they put it in when I was fighting Johnny Lawrence, I was like, yes. But it's fun, you know. It's great to have a tagline, I guess, as a character.
I mean, it's iconic, dude. And the fact that, you know, I want to acknowledge that I got the pleasure of meeting Sean at the Pasadena Comic-Con, and I know the different cons have been so integral into being able to do signings, getting to meet the fan base. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to do that with Marvel Comics as a comic book writer.
Amazing.
Let's talk about that experience, because that experience for people that come to the cons, whether it's Comic-Con in New York or LA, San Diego, Pasadena, there's these moments of getting a minute to speak to you. Yeah. I love the idea of fans getting to reminisce and have the nostalgia and, you know, your perspective on that.
It really makes me feel good inside, you know, to know that, you know, I was able to be a part of something that was a part of the fabric of someone's childhood, and that now is a part of their child's, you know, this, you know, cinematic love. And I've met some wonderful people. The Karate Kid fans, other than soap opera fans, the Karate Kid fans are like the most amazing fans there are. I don't know. It just keeps it fresh for me. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity to reconnect with some of the actors that I worked with that, you know, we're all busy. We all live separate lives, but we get the chance to see each other a couple times a year. And it's almost like being part of, I guess, a very select club, because there's, you know, maybe, you know, 20 or 30 of us that were part of the Karate Kid movies, maybe less.
Right.
And we have this shared common denominator, this experience, and we'll always have that. And it's nice to see each other. And I get the added bonus of meeting awesome people like you.
Thank you,
never
brother.
know who's going to come
Appreciate
up
that.
and I'm going to meet.
I just came as a fan, by the way.
It was amazing.
Just as a fan.
It was crazy.
I was like, yo, Sean from my favorite movie franchises here. I'm going to go say what's up, humbly, respectfully. And then
I was so honored
the
to
fact
meet
that you were like, dude, like, I'm down to do your podcast. Like, I appreciate that, you know.
You brought up something earlier. I want to jump back to it real quick. You kind of gave us an Easter egg that if you hadn't come back to the film, that Brandon Lee would have taken your spot.
I believe so, yeah.
Which I think that was an interesting thing. Bruce Lee's
I
son,
don't think
Brandon
would have fit that. I think his character...
Well, of course, he killed it, so you don't picture anybody else
I like
it.
Brandon. I know what he did with The Crow, rest in peace, and all that. He was great. But I think it
would have been a miss.
Yeah, Mike Barnes, Sean as Mike Barnes it was just like...
Only because he did a good job.
He did a great job.
You know what I mean? If you didn't do a good job, then we could have been like, we see Brandon doing that.
Yeah, I'll be like, bring Brandon Lee.
But because this podcast, we really like to peel back the curtain a little bit for fans to kind of get some behind the scenes. I think that was a good moment. What are some of the other moments maybe on set that we didn't get a chance to see in the movie, but maybe you could share?
Well, okay, if you remember in Karate Kid 3, there's a scene where Ralph's character goes to a dance and then he punches a kid.
Breaks his nose.
So the kid he punched was the kid who was the lead with Val Kilmer in Real Genius, right? I don't remember his name.
I don't remember his name. Oh, no, the movie.
And they brought... This is a big budget film for you. They brought Paula Abdul in to be the dance choreographer for Ralph, just kind of doing that.
Shout out to Paula Abdul.
And we know that because she brought it up. She was just a guest.
She did?
We talked about it. Yeah, she talked about, because she choreographed some stuff for Karate Kid, and she brought that up, and then also Dragnet with Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And that's where she met L.A. Reed and Babyface.
I like that. Let's keep the fun going, because before I get into you as a heartthrob on soap opera, I want to.
You got to kick his wife out.
I know this man. I'm going to get into the soap opera guy right now, but before we go there, I got a couple fun just questions.
Sure.
And you just give me an answer to either if I say Looney Tunes or Sesame Street.
Looney Tunes.
Ninja or samurai?
That's a tough one. Ninja.
Okay. Prince or Michael Jackson?
Prince.
Oh,
Ooh.
I gotta go. Mike on that.
I'm gonna go Prince.
Really?
You know why?
Prince
I love
over
Mike
MJ?
as a performer. Don't get me wrong. People are gonna be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
he's the greatest." Yes, I get he's a dancer. I get
It's
he's
all preference, though. Yeah.
It's just preference.
preference. Yeah, I get it.
I honestly love Prince's musicianship. The fact that he was able to play all the instruments, wrote everything, sang everything.
How great was the Chappelle thing where Prince plays him in
blouses? Blouses.
Charlie Murphy. Would you
Charlie
like to want some pancakes?
All right. I'm asking Sean,
Yes.
not Mike Barnes.
Okay.
Are you more Miyagi Dojo or are you more Cobra Kai in real life?
Oh, I would say Miyagi Dojo. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I believe that, if you have martial arts ability and understanding and training, that you use it to protect yourself, to protect others. But that wasn't what they were taught in Cobra Kai.
Mm,
You know,
I love that.
I mean, I think that if you fight with chi, you fight with honor.
Mhm.
That's my personal thing.
I love that. I love that because, you tapped into Cobra Kai so freaking great in the movie that, like, I didn't know you, but I was like, I hate that guy. I hate Johnny Lawrence, Chosen, and
Right,
freaking Mike
right,
Barnes.
right.
But that's what makes people great is when you're able to hate the character and then you meet him in real life. You're
And
like,
they're-
man,
yeah.
this dude's
Just
awesome.
just acting.
He's just acting. I was just playing Mike
Right,
Barnes.
right.
Do you like all the new Karate Kids with
I haven't seen him, to be honest.
No.
The one with Jackie Chan.
I
with
watched it.
Jackie and
I've seen
and Will
snippets
Smith's
of it.
son. What?
I mean,
Jaden
it's-
Smith. Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah.
I'm a purist.
The issue I have with that,
Ralph.
is that it's based on kung fu.
Oh.
It's not based on Japanese
Right.
karate.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's dope.
I haven't seen the new one with Ralph. I'm sure I will at some point.
I did see it. It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay. But like you said, I'm a purist too. It's like, I want to
Yeah.
go.
You know what's so funny is people always talk about the Karate Kid franchise and they say, "Oh, the 3 films," and there are 4.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I mean, and it's so funny. Like a lot of people, the 4th is not their favorite. Yet I'm sure Hilary Swank is not crying in her soup with her 2 Oscars. So
Yeah, I mean, dude, like, to go from Karate Kid
yeah.
and then you go into AJ and Deacon Sharp, General Hospital, Bold and Beautiful, and The Young and the Restless. What was that like? Going from a iconic film to now you're going to soap opera world.
Iconic daytime
Well, I actually,
TV.
there was actually a little bit of a skip over. I went from doing Karate Kid 3 to doing a TV series for Fox called The Outsiders, which was
that's right, The
based on
Outsiders.
the S.E. Hinton book. And I read all the S.E. Hinton books when I was a kid. Outsiders, that was then, This Is Now, Rumblefish. And I got to play the leader of the Socias, which was the rich kids gang. And it was so badass because we did this big rumble scene. And I remember reading it in the book, and there were these oil drums on fire, and the Socias, the rich kids, had their fancy cars. They drove in a line, and then the greasers came in, and then the leader of the greasers, and then my character came up, and we started this fight. And there were all these, actors, greasers, and Socias in this massive brawl. And it was one of those pinch me moments, kind of like Karate Kid 3 a little, because I had grown up reading these books, and now I was a part of it.
And what's crazy, just to interject,
Ralph Macchio.
Ralph Macchio.
Yeah.
Do it for Johnny, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was with Francis Ford Coppola. And then after that, I went to do a project for Oliver Stone. It was called Wild Palms. It was a miniseries based on a Bruce Wagner book. And then a funny thing happened. Then the phone stopped ringing. And I came to the stark realization that I was getting roles because I was, a very good looking young 20-something kid full of piss and vinegar, but I hadn't really worked enough on my acting technique because I was working so much, and I made the conscious decision to pull back and to do a play.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'm gonna do a play, and plays are one of the best ways to learn to become a better actor. You get an extensive rehearsal period.
There's no cut. You gotta go
it's
straight-
sink or swim.
Yeah.
And in this play that I was doing, I had to do an English accent. And this was like, you talk about putting your balls on the table. And I got very good reviews for it. And then after that, I started getting calls again. And I was really good friends with Steve Burton, who played Jason Quartermain, and we looked really, really similar. And he said, "Hey, listen, they're hiring a character to play my brother. Would you come and screen test?" And I was like, "All right, I'll come screen test." And I got the role.
Did you know what it was for, though?
Yeah, I knew.
Okay.
And so I got the role, and that began my relationship with daytime in 1992, which still continues on today. I never planned on going into soap operas, but it's been a really great thing for me because I've also been able to structure my deals where I'm able to leave and go do things like Cobra Kai, go produce films like the one my wife and I just produced. And, if I'm being really honest about it, it's given me the financial foundation that allows me the freedom to go do that. It's really difficult to take calculated risks and leaps of faith when you're still worrying about how you're going to feed yourself.
Of course.
But when you have the luxury of being employed, it affords you the ability to take those chances if you're inclined. Some people aren't inclined. Some people are very happy just doing that. And that's a choice, and I respect it. For me, one of the reasons that I have stayed on daytime is because I've been able to do other things, and it satisfies me creatively. I don't think just one thing would satisfy me creatively.
Let's talk about that royalty, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about that Eric Cocaine, All My Children royalties. What does that look like, dude? Talk about royalties in the back end.
Well, I mean, I'm fortunate that Bold and the Beautiful is syndicated in like 100 different countries. All the soap operas aren't.
Yeah.
But more than that, because it's syndicated in so many countries, it's opened up a lot of opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. So when I got on Bold and the Beautiful, it was like the number 1 or 2 show in Italy. And so one of the few smart things I've done in my career is I said, if I can learn to speak Italian, I can have another career in Europe. And so I just dove into learning to speak Italian. I mean, I just hundreds of hours of lessons and courses and everything. And ultimately, I was able to have this other career in Italy. I did Ballando con le Stelle, which is Dancing with the Stars. I did a film over there. I do television things over there. And it's been an amazing experience. It's a weird thing to see yourself speaking fluent Polish or fluent whatever language there is, because they dub it in all these different languages. Yeah.
One of the things that I love about Sean is that he didn't get typecasted to only Karate Kid. Although we love him for Mike Barnes, the fact that he was able to reinvent himself and continue dreaming beyond what the first blessing was, or the initial blessing of Karate Kid. And to this day, you're able to double dip. Like you said, you put in your contract to be able to do Cobra Kai. I love that, man. I love seeing that, because a lot of times when you have such a big franchise, that actors and actresses, they get really pigeonholed to that, you know? And I don't know if Ralph Macchio has made an amazing, he's reinvented himself, even though it's Karate Kid, Daniel LaRusso, Cobra Kai.
But people forget, like, he was on Broadway doing How to Succeed in Business. Yeah. He did a play called Cuba and His Teddy Bear with De Niro. Yeah. I mean, Ralph's, the thing that I'm so glad about Cobra Kai, because he didn't get a chance to show this in the Karate Kid franchise. Ralph's got some comedy chops.
Well, we talked about it, and when he did Entourage,
he was on My Cousin Vinny too.
When he did Entourage, and they had this whole beef at the shout out to Doug Ellen, good friend of mine who created Entourage. Yeah. And Kevin Connolly's a good friend too. But when he and Kevin Dillon had that whole beef of trying to get back into the Playboy Mansion for the big party,
so funny.
It was so funny.
It's so
Ralph
funny.
Was hilarious in that.
Yeah, that's great.
It is.
He pops up to his house and he knocks on his front door. Do you remember the scene?
Yeah.
Where he knocks on the Kevin Dillon knocks on his door, and they're having the beef, and he's trying to Ralph's trying to hide it from his wife that he's going to the Playboy. I'm not going there. What are you talking about?
It's funny that Kevin Dillon, Matt Dillon's brother, is able to do Entourage, and then years before that, Matt Dillon and Ralph Macchio did The Outsiders.
It's a lot of 6 degrees of separation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing to be part of.
Can I ask a question about daytime TV? What's the biggest difference between movie and daytime TV? Because I know you guys film a ton of scenes in 8 hours.
Yeah, the biggest difference is that, on a film, you might shoot 8 or 9 pages a day. Yeah. And on a soap opera, we shoot 1.5 shows a day so that when you turn your TV on Christmas Day, we've got a show banked for you. So it's really normal for me to have 30 pages of dialogue. One of the reasons we're able to move so quickly is we've got overhead lighting. So in other words, when you're doing a film, you have to light each scene. And then when you come around to shoot it on the other side, you have to relight, and that takes a couple hours. We just have lights overhead on a grid that are computer programmed. So we step out on the set, 3 cameras, and it moves at lightning speed. Generally speaking, you get 2 takes maybe, because there just isn't time for more than that. And you're doing so much material that you really have to discipline yourself to let it go once you shoot it. And I watch a lot of younger actors, they'll do a scene and maybe they're not real happy with it and they'll kind of kick themselves. And I'm like, let that shit go, because you got 10 more scenes today.
Yeah.
And you cannot let that permeate what you're about to do. We do so much dialogue in so many scenes. They're not all going to be for the Emmy reel, and you got to just, you just got to keep moving forward.
Who are some of the folks that you saw come through in your 30 years of daytime TV who've come through, maybe younger, now we kind of household names?
Well, Ricky Martin was on General Hospital with me. Vanessa Marcel, Rick Springfield, and
Destiny's girl.
Yeah,
Stephen A. Smith.
I just saw that last night. I couldn't believe that.
Wait, that's
funny.
He wasn't that bad either.
Yeah.
I thought he did a good job.
He's the agent, right?
Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on General Hospital.
He's on General Hospital.
I was like, get
Stephen
outta
A.
here.
Smith.
Is he as annoying on General Hospital?
No, he was. I
He's
just
a little
watched
dialed
the
down.
scene.
He's dialed down for sure.
Elizabeth Taylor was on. I didn't work with Elizabeth Taylor, but she was on General Hospital. Oh, I worked with Bob Barker. That was kind of fun.
Oh wow, Price is Right. He's
What was
great.
that
They
like,
just
working with
just
Bob?
think.
Was he already Price is Right by then?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So Price is Right filmed in the studio right
Burbank
next
Studios.
to Bold and the Beautiful. So sometimes they'd throw our actors on to be celebrity guests, and they were like, "You're doing a scene with Bob Barker." I did a scene with James Corden and Little Nas. Yeah, sometimes they just bring people on, and I'm like, okay, all right, it's fun, keeps it fresh.
That's cool.
The Princess of Denmark.
Oh yeah. So I've actually kissed a princess. Yeah.
That's why she brought that one up.
Yeah,
She never forgot about it.
Your wife's like, yo, remember that?
She's the princess.
The
she's
Princess
the
of Denmark.
princess of Greece and Denmark.
Wow.
And
Like in real life.
In real life.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she wanted to act?
She wanted to act, and she has a little reacurring role on Bold and the Beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking about Emmy
Theodora,
Reel,
her name is Princess
you mentioned
Theodora.
Emmy Reel.
Yeah.
Because I want to give you your flowers for going from being the kid that was pulled out of line to be part of this franchise, to getting an opportunity to be an outsider, to associate the outsiders,
right,
and then going to daytime television, and then being a creator of an Emmy award-winning show.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Let's understand what it is first.
So Studio City is a digital drama that I created. It follows a character named Sam Stevens that I play, whose alter ego is Dr. Pierce Hartley on the #2 soap opera in the world, Hearts on Fire. And it's, he's a guy that you look at him and you think, wow, this guy makes money. He works with beautiful women. He must have the world by the tail. And he's just trying to get out of his own way, and he can't seem to do it. And like I said, it's a show within a show, and it's alternately really funny and alternately has a lot of pathos and drama in it. And ultimately, I did that because I got sick of waiting for somebody to give me a lead in a TV show.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think of Don Corleone when he says, I refuse to be a puppet on the end of strings that someone else is pulling. And I just was really frustrated with the fact that I wasn't getting some of the breaks that I wanted. And I said, all right, you're going to be a victim and complain, or you're going to do something about it?
That part.
And I went out and I created the show, and had a lot of help and some great people, not the least of which is my wife, Michelle, who was one of the executive producers and head writers with me. And I got a bunch of friends who were actors, and we got nominated for I think 8 or 9 Emmys the first year.
Wow.
And we ultimately got nominated for 19. We won 3. And it was an unbelievable experience. And so if you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's on Amazon Prime, YouTube. I think it's on Pluto and Tubi. And it's terrific. And my beautiful stepdaughter, Juliet Vega, plays my daughter in it at the end of the first episode. This girl, I'm at this autograph signing that I didn't want to go to. And she shows me a picture and she says, "Were you at FanFest in 2000?" And I'm like, I don't know. And she said, "Is that a picture of you with this woman?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Are you my father?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And it turns out that I've got this daughter I never knew I had.
Wow.
And so it's just this guy who's trying to figure it all out in front of the cameras of America's #2 soap opera.
That's great. I love that you're working with your stepdaughter.
Oh, she's
I've been
terrific.
working with my daughter too, man. So I commend girl dads that are doing their thing. Shout out to your wife and Trixie.
I mean, I couldn't
other
love her
furry.
more than if she was my
Trixie's chilling.
This podcast.
Trixie is their dog.
Would she wander
Really
over if you let her
chill.
down?
Trixie, come here, baby.
There she is.
We got to give her a cameo.
Yeah.
Babe, you know you got to bring her over. Come here. Oh, this is my
Bring
girl.
her on camera. There she is. Trixie.
Oh, there's the baby. Go say hi
Oh,
to-
she's
Go say
adorable.
hi to Tab. Go say
She's
hi.
adorable.
That's it?
So
Yeah.
I think Sean's being really modest. One of the really huge benefits of having someone who's been in daytime is that they rescue productions because he can come in and he's like a machine. He learns dialogue. You can throw anything at him. He's like, I got it. And just like the confidence and the skill level. And, daytime is a shoebox. So you're in a fishbowl and you're trying to make exposition really interesting. And he does it in a way that's captive. Like you listen to him, you're watching and you keep watching and you realize they're talking about car crashes and affairs.
Yeah, there's no movement really in daytime. It's all talk.
Yep.
And so for him to be able to spin these tales consistently, and there were times when we first met, we were kind of in our honeymoon phase where we might not have got to bed right on time, and he had shows the next day, and he had a stack of papers, and he's like, "Yeah, I gotta look at this. Hold on." Yeah. And we get through it. And
Well,
Yeah, you don't get sides in daytime.
no,
You get a fucking book.
No.
Get a whole book.
You get
Yeah, there's no sides.
they give him a week to learn it. And so, I kind of got spoiled. And when we did Studio City and we were doing casting, the actors would show up and they'd be like, "Can I get some sides?" And we're like, "I mean, you have 2 hours. Like, what are you complaining about?" And people were like, whoa, and really started to see how talented Sean truly is. That he could just get in there and be a boss on set and have this dialogue down and pull a performance out of an actor. Tristan Rogers, who's one of our really good friends, who's in Studio City. He's been Robert Scorpio for 45 years, never been nominated.
No. We just lost Tris a little while ago.
Well, I think we need cameos on your show so we can get nominated. Sounds like you guys get nominated.
I mean,
for
oh my
everything.
God.
19
I was talking
Yeah,
to
we
him
talked
about
nominations.
Michelle. The first thing I said was, I said, "Tab, can you act?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And I was like,
Done a couple
okay.
things.
I'm already thinking for our next film.
So Sean, a credit to his leadership, his voice, his advocacy to be a life coach as well. I really want to touch on that because I feel like this experience doing a podcast is not only just nostalgia and being a fan, but also learning and educating myself and wanting to do better in life.
Yeah.
I love that you wrote these books because they have a lot of ways of motivating and inspiring the reader. Let's discuss these books, what they're about.
So the way the Cobra series, Cobra's an acronym. It's formed from the words character, optimization, balance, respect, and abundance. And it's set up that I'm the sensei. You're in my dojo. The chapters are divided into belts. And look, I reached a point in my life. It was my 50th birthday, and Michelle had gotten me a star on the Palm Springs Walk of Fame. And thank you. And I the mayor was there, and Martin Cove came, and people said lots of nice things about me.
His son is an actor too, right?
Jesse,
Jesse,
yeah.
Jesse Cole.
I know
Yeah,
Jesse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think from the outside, I looked to most people like what we would think of somebody who's successful, but I felt like a complete fraud. I was really struggling with alcohol. I was hanging on to my job by a thread. I was like 40 pounds overweight. And I was really dealing with some demons. And every time I looked in the mirror, the scariest thing was I didn't have any answers. And, I believe that there's two reasons that human beings change. They do it out of love, and they do it out of fear. Fear comes from two places. It comes from fear of not getting what you want and fear of having what you have taken away. And my wife, Michelle, to her credit, never said, hey, I'm going to leave you. But she said something to me one day that hit me like a bolt of lightning. And that was really the catalyst where I really got onto the path of changing. And she said, I have put everything into this relationship. Please tell me I didn't back the wrong horse. And it just was like, boom.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I had complete fear of losing the thing that I love the most. And also the fear of not living a life that I knew I could live, swirling into mediocrity. And so I started on this journey to changing my life, and I lost 50 some pounds. I got sober. I'll have 5 years this year.
Beautiful. I got 18, dude.
Dude, right on.
Sobriety.
Right on, man.
Sacred.
That's the most round of applause we've ever given.
That's amazing.
You've got a lot.
And it's so funny when I got sober, all of the things that I wanted and that I couldn't understand why they weren't manifesting. It was like the clouds parted and they started coming to me. But all the things that I wanted that were the material things and things like that, they lost their importance to me. I like nice things. We all do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I have nice things, but they don't hold the same importance they used to. The things, and you know, I don't want this to sound like I'm a beauty queen giving like some stock speech, but for me, it's the quality of my relationships, my ability to influence and help other people, and my ability to live my life with character and integrity. Those are the biggest gifts that I've gotten from this journey. And so I wanted to put them in a book, the strategies and the philosophy that I used to save my ass from swirling down the drain and to live my life the way I do now. And, you know, I realized that if I was going to elevate myself to the position of a sensei teacher, I didn't want to talk down to my reader. And so I said, listen, let me tell you something. I've made every mistake in this book a dozen times over. I want to save you, you know, the pain of having to do it. And so I came up with really honest autobiographical stories about how I was able to resolve certain challenges and how, you know, you need to assume responsibility for yourself. You need to look at what are the stories that you're telling yourself, because humans have an incredible ability to be not only horrendous historians, but to bullshit themselves, because we all look at experiences through this refracted prism that's comprised of 1,000 different facets that are our life experiences, which is why two people can experience the same thing, but take something very different from it. You know, I mean, you can have two kids raised by an alcoholic, abusive father. One grows up to be an alcoholic. The other's like, I'm never touching alcohol.
Yeah.
And it changes, you know, the direction of their life. And we were talking about meeting people at these Comic-Cons. I was in Nashville and this guy came up to me. I didn't know him. He was with his son, who must have been about 12. And the guy said, I just want to thank you because I read your book and it got me sober. And I could see in his child's eyes that it was like he got his dad back. And I got so choked up and I was like, that to me is the kind of thing now in my life that is the shiny material object that I used to want before. That's what feeds my soul.
Yeah, I love that. You know, you never know who you're going to meet at these cons. You can meet a person that inspires you and speaks from a very candid place like you. Thank you for sharing. Shout out to your wife. I'm big on my wife too, because she's been there when I was battling cancer, when I became sober, you know, having my son at 17, she helped me raise my son, my older son. You never know when you're going to be the kid in line and you see a person that is, you know, a director and pulls you out and says, I want you to be part of this movie. I just want to say thank you for being part of this podcast. It means a lot. I think I have a new friend for life.
Absolutely.
A new brother for life.
I'm so honored to be here. This is a real pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah.
You guys got to come back.
Great guys.
So
I would love
more
to.
We got to talk about.
Dude, I want him to be part of the golf tournament, even if it's just hanging out, just sharing space, sharing
you got
space.
a cart to do that. The cart will carry the clubs, but you can carry the cart.
All right, I'm going to see if I can make it.
It's a blessing to have this man, ladies and gentlemen, Sean Kanan.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, guys.
That's right, y'all. It's Taboo Nawasha, and I hope you enjoyed geeking out with me and going straight into geek mode. For more information, for more videos, subscribe, like, and comment. Share it with your friends. Much love. There it is.